Picture this, the blinding lights of a massive stadium, the deafening roar of thousands of fans, and at the heart of it all, two rock legends sharing the stage. On one side, Angus Young, the unstoppable force behind his CDC, shredding electrifying riffs in his iconic schoolboy outfit. On the other, Axl Rose, the wild and unpredictable frontman of Guns N' Roses, known for his explosive temper and chaotic energy. In 2016, their worlds collided when Axl stepped in as a KDC singer, a moment that seemed like a dream for rock fans. But behind the scenes, it was a ticking time bomb of chaos, egos, and conflict. Today, we're diving deep into the untold story of Axl Rose, the brilliance, the madness, and the battles that made him one of rock's most legendary and controversial figures. From his explosive partnership with Angus Young to his trail of destruction with Guns N' Roses, this is a story you won't believe. Stick with me until the end because you don't want to miss the shocking details of Axl's personal struggles and how they shaped his legacy. Let's get started. Imagine being Angus Young, a rock star who's all about discipline and precision. For decades, he's led a KDC with a tight grip, delivering hit after hit with a band that runs like a well-oiled machine. Now, picture him teaming up with Axl Rose, a man who's the complete opposite, unpredictable, fiery, and impossible to control. When Axl joined AC/DC in 2016 for their Rock or Bust tour, it was because their longtime singer, Brian Johnson, had to step down due to hearing problems. Fans were buzzing. Some were thrilled at the idea of Axl's powerful voice taking on AC/DC's classics. Others, they weren't so sure. Could a guy known for showing up late or not at all fit into AC/DC's world? The truth is, it was a disaster waiting to happen. From the moment Axl stepped into the band, tensions started to build. Angus was used to Brian Johnson's steady, reliable presence. Brian showed up on time, hit his marks, and kept things professional. Axl, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of chaos. Rehearsals turned into battlegrounds. Axl would show up late, sometimes not at all, leaving the band and crew frustrated and confused. When he was there, his mood swings made it hard for anyone to know what to expect. One minute, he'd be charming and full of energy. The next, he'd be storming off in a rage. Angus, who'd spent years keeping AC/DC's machine running smoothly, was suddenly dealing with a singer who seemed to thrive on unpredictability. It wasn't just about showing up late. Axl wanted control over everything. He pushed for changes. To the setlist, the way he sang the songs, even the way the band moved on stage. For Angus, this was a problem. AC/DC wasn't just a band, it was his vision. He'd always been the one calling the shots, and now Axl was stepping into territory that Angus had ruled for decades. Their arguments weren't quiet disagreements behind closed doors. They were loud, explosive shouting matches that left everyone around them on edge. Doors slammed, tempers flared, and the chemistry fans saw on stage? It was held together by a thread so thin it could snap at any moment, but this wasn't the first time Axl's behavior caused chaos. To understand why things went so wrong with the KDC, we need to look at Axl's history with Guns N' Roses, the band that made him a legend. Guns N' Roses wasn't just a band, it was a storm of talent, ego, and dysfunction, with Axl at the center of it all. The original lineup with Slash on guitar, Duff McKagan on bass, Izzy Stradlin on rhythm guitar, and Steven Adler on drums was a powerhouse. They created Appetite for Destruction, one of the greatest rock albums of all time. But behind the music, things were falling apart, and Axl's behavior was a big reason why. Take his feud with Slash, for example. Axl and Slash were like brothers. In the early days, their chemistry creating magic on stage and in the studio. But as Guns N' Roses grew bigger, so did the cracks in their relationship. What started as small creative disagreements turned into something much uglier. Axl accused Slash of selling out, while Slash called Axl impossible to work with. Their arguments spilled into the public, with insults flying back and forth for years. Legal battles followed, and the band that had once been unstoppable broke apart. For over a decade, Axl and Slash didn't speak, leaving fans heartbroken and Guns N' Roses a shadow of what it used to be. Axl's need for control didn't stop with Slash. He wanted to own everything about Guns N' Roses, even the band's name. He insisted on being the sole owner, which caused huge fights with his bandmates. Legal battles dragged on, and one by one, the original members left. Izzy Stradlin walked away, tired of the drama. Steven Adler was kicked out, struggling with addiction and Axl's demands. Duff McKagan eventually left too. Guns N' Roses became a revolving door of musicians, with Axl as the only constant. His unpredictable leadership made it hard for anyone to stick around for long, but Axl's chaos wasn't just behind the scenes. He was known for public meltdowns that became the stuff of rock legend. One of the most infamous happened in 1991. In St. Louis, Guns N' Roses was performing and Axl noticed a fan in the crowd taking photos with a camera. For most singers, this wouldn't be a big deal. But for Axl, it was like lighting a match in a room full of dynamite. He didn't just call out the fan, he jumped into the crowd, fists flying, ready to take him down. Security rushed in, but the damage was done. Axl stormed off stage, yelling about the lame security and saying he was done. What happened next was pure anarchy. The crowd, already hyped up from the concert, turned angry. Their excitement became rage, and a full-scale riot broke out. People were hurt, property was destroyed, and the city of St. Louis was left in shock. Axl was hit with lawsuits, banned from performing in the city, and cemented his reputation as the rock star who could turn a concert into a war zone. It wasn't just a bad night, it was a moment that defined Axl. As rock's ultimate wildcard, then there's the story of Chinese Democracy, the Guns N' Roses album that took 14 years to make. It was supposed to be Axl's masterpiece. The album that would prove he didn't need Slash or the original band to create something amazing. Instead, it became a symbol of everything that made Axl so complicated. Millions of dollars were poured into the project. Studios were booked for years. Producers came and went, unable to keep up with Axl's demands for perfection. Band members changed constantly, with Axl hiring and firing musicians as he chased a vision no one else could see. Axl's obsession with control turned Chinese Democracy into a nightmare. He'd spend hours tweaking a single vocal line, refusing to move on until it was perfect. Fans waited and waited, their excitement turning to frustration as years passed with no album in sight. When Chinese Democracy finally came out in 2008, it wasn't the game-changer Axl had hoped for. Some liked it, but many felt it was overproduced and didn't live up to the hype. The album wasn't just music, it was a warning about what happens when a genius lets their need for control take over. Axl's unpredictability didn't stop with albums or bandmates. His concerts were a gamble for fans. He was notorious for showing up late, sometimes hours late, or not showing up at all. Crowds would wait, growing restless, their cheers turning to boos as the minutes ticked by. When Axl finally appeared, he acted like nothing was wrong, strolling onto the stage as if the world revolved around him. Other times, he canceled shows at the last minute, leaving fans angry and promoters scrambling. For Axl, it wasn't just about performing. It was about power, about keeping everyone, fans, bandmates, even the music industry, on edge, never knowing what he'd do next. But there's more to Axl Rose than the headlines and the chaos. Beneath the rock star swagger and the explosive temper was a man fighting battles most people never saw. Axl was born William Bruce Rose Jr. in Lafayette, Indiana, a small town that felt worlds away from the rock stages he'd later command. His childhood wasn't easy. When he was just 2, his biological father disappeared, leaving Axl and his mother to pick up the pieces. His stepfather, who should have been a source of support, was reportedly abusive, creating a home filled with fear and confusion. These early years left scars that Axl carried into adulthood. The abandonment, the abuse, it all shaped the man he became. His anger, his need for control, his distrust of others, it can all be traced back to a childhood that gave him little reason to feel safe or loved. Axl wasn't just a rock star, throwing tantrums for attention. He was a man trying to make sense of a world that had hurt him from the start. Axl's struggles didn't end with his childhood. He's been open about his battles with mental health, though the details are often shrouded in rumor and speculation. Depression would hit him hard, pulling him into dark places where even his music couldn't reach. Anxiety made it hard for him to feel at ease, even when he was surrounded by fans screaming his name. And his rage, the kind that led to riots and feuds, wasn't just a rock star act. It was a sign of a man struggling to keep his emotions in check, fighting a war inside his own mind. This inner turmoil spilled into every part of his life. The public saw the meltdowns, the late shows, the fights with bandmates. But those closest to Axl saw something else, a man who was deeply lonely even at the height of his fame. As Guns N' Roses grew bigger, Axl pulled away from the world. He stopped doing interviews, rarely appeared in public, and pushed away old friends and bandmates. His inner circle got smaller and he built walls around himself that no one could break through. Fame, which should have brought him closer to people, became a prison he couldn't escape. Axl's isolation wasn't just about avoiding the spotlight. It was about protecting himself from a world he didn't trust. The paranoia, the fear of betrayal, it all fed into his need to control everything around him. But the more he tried to control, the more chaotic his life became. Bandmates left. Friendships fell apart, and Axl was left alone with his music and his demons. To the outside world, he was Axl Rose, the untouchable rock god. Inside, he was William Bruce Rose Jr., a man searching for peace he could never quite find. Looking back, Axl Rose's story is one of incredible talent and heartbreaking chaos. His voice, raw, powerful, and unforgettable, made him one of the greatest frontmen in rock history. Songs like Sweet Child O' Mine and November Rain are timeless, proof of what Axl could create when his brilliance shone through. But his legacy is just as much about the conflicts, the meltdowns, and the personal struggles that defined him. Angus Young's revelations about their time together in a CDC pull back the curtain on a man who could light up a stage, but couldn't escape the darkness inside himself. Axl's life is a reminder that genius and madness often go hand in hand. He gave the world music that will live forever, but he paid a price for it. His bands fell apart, his friendships crumbled, and his reputation became as much about his behavior as his talent. In the end, Axl's greatest enemy wasn't the music industry, his bandmates, or even Angus Young. It was himself, a man who could inspire millions with his voice but couldn't find a way to tame the storms inside his own heart. So, what's the lesson here? Axl Rose's story shows us the power of raw talent and the cost of letting your demons run the show. It's a story of highs and lows, of music that changed the world and a man who couldn't change himself. If this dive into Axl's life got you thinking, hit that like button and share this video with anyone who loves rock music or a good story about the human struggle. And don't forget to subscribe, we're diving into more stories like this. And you won't want to miss what's coming next. Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Guns N' Roses song, or what do you think about Axl's wild legacy? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.